Now we're going to talk about a different kind of rollover. So you should have downloaded and unzipped the folder Remote Rollover and gone to Site, New Site, called it Remote Rollover, and point to that folder. And then open it up, and you should see a bunch of images. All I've done so far is I made a home page, and I put a container in, and that's it. A remote rollover allows us to roll over our images in one location and then change an image in another location. So we're going to set this up together. I'm going to start with putting my image beats large in here. And then I'm going to put the other ones that don't have the word large on it underneath. So I have beets underneath. I have a Belgian chocolate, so not the one that says large. So these are my thumbnails. And I have cucumbers. Interesting combination. Okay, so first thing is I want to make sure that my width is working here. And so if I add up the widths of my thumbnails, so this is 300, this is 300, and this is 300. So I know that my container should be 900 or more if I'm going to add padding. So for right now, I'm just going to make it at 900. Okay, so I've put in my CSS and I have my margins left and right auto and width, and I have this scenario where it should be fitting, but one image, my cucumber image, is going down. So let's switch over here to the code view, and what I see is I see a big space between this image and my other image. So in my code view, I'm going to backspace until there's no space. They're coming right after another. Go back into split view. Let's just double check it, save it, and go to the browser. And now they are all as they should be because I added it up, and the width equals 900, and so that's the way it should work. All right, so again, just remember, if that ever happens to you, just check in your code and make sure there's no space in between your images. So what we want in this case, we already saw how you can swap an image out in its current location, but what if I have this other image I want to swap? So in other words, when I'm on the chocolate, I want this large beet image to become a large image of chocolate. When I'm on the cucumbers, I want this large beet image to become a large picture of cucumbers. And then when I go back to beets, I want it to be back to beets. So that's what we're going to set up. All right, so I have everything set up here. And now the first thing I need to do is I need to give this image an ID. And that's simply just so I can identify it. So I'm going to click on my large image. I'm going to go down to my properties inspector where it says ID, and I'm just going to call it large. I'm not going to call it main because I may make a div that I call main, and then that would be a conflict. So call it something that you would not call one of your divs. So I'm going to call it large. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, I'll click on the cucumber. Let's start on that side. Click on the cucumber. And I'm going to open that behaviors panel again. And I'm going to do the same steps. Click on the plus sign and go to swap image. But this time, I'm not going to stay on the image that is currently selected. So I didn't even talk about these images before when we did when we did the regular rollovers, because there was nothing we needed to change. By default, if you click on an image, that's going to be the highlighted image here. This lists all the images on the page, and the one that I ID'd large is identified up here. So that's why I ID'd it, so I could identify it. So I don't want to switch this one. I want to switch large. So select that one, then go to Browse and look for the large image of the cucumber. And click OK. And click OK. All right, so let's just save this and test that out in the browser. I'll just refresh this page. So now when I hover over cucumber, the image swaps from the beet to the cucumber. All right, let's do it with the chocolate. So now I'm going to click on the chocolate. Same thing, go up to swap image, select for my images large, browse for the large chocolate, and click OK. And even though it's going to go back to the beat image, I like to set that just in case. There are some scenarios, and we can set something up like that where it wouldn't necessarily go back. So let's set it up the same way for the beat image. Click on the plus sign, swap image, select large, and browse for the large image of the beat. And let's save this and double check in the browser that everything is working. So that's your remote rollover. So I am hovering over here, but I'm changing my other image that I ID'd. Now, what we get is every time I mouse off, I always switch to the beats, which right now is not a big deal because I have my images right next to each other. But, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my images a margin so we can see a scenario where we may want to get rid of that swap image restore. So my images now have a margin of 20. I'm going to save this. We're going to go to the browser. So watch what happens when I go from my cucumber to the chocolate. Do you see how it flashed for a second in between to the beats? So if you have a lot of space in between your images, it can be kind of annoying or a little bit too flashy to have it go back to that original image. So one thing you could do, I'm going to click on this and open up my behaviors again, is I'm going to get rid of that swap image restore. So it won't go back to the beat image, it'll actually stay on the cucumber. So I could just get rid of that, do the same thing with the chocolate, and get rid of that. And so now let's see what happens. So now I'm on the cucumber and my mouse goes off and it stays on the cucumber. I go to the chocolate and it stays on there, and I go to the beats. So this is why I was saying you may still want to set the beats to have the remote rollover to go to the large beat, because if you take your swap image restore off, then it won't happen automatically. All right, so that's everything you need to know about remote rollovers. Really, the only difference is give your image that you want to change an ID, and that's the one you're going to select. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is that all of my large images were the exact same size. You can't swap this out with another image that's smaller because they will all become the size of your original image. So you want to make sure all of my large ones were the exact same size. So that's the one thing you would consider in doing the remote rollover. Your thumbnails don't have to be the same size. We do like them the same height, but these guys all the same size.